This is Talk of the Devils, the athletic show dedicated to Manchester United. Coming up, we talk Ben-ya-min Sheshko. He's signed. Will he shine? We'll find out soon. Have Manchester United got more transfers up their sleeves? Quite possibly, actually. The rumours are still circulating about a few different targets, so we'll get into that. And we'll also talk about the opening of the new-look Carrington. £50 million spent. Our man Mark Critchley was there to have a nosy around, and we'll hear from him later on. But of course, I need to introduce the full house. After work trips, holidays and honeymoons, everyone is back at home. And I need to say hello to Laurie Whitwell, Carl Anker and Andy Mitten. I just put a little bit of distance in there between Laurie and Andy just for, those purposes. Hope that's okay, lads.
Oh, absolutely. It's beautiful to have Carl back in our warm embrace.
Yeah, we did have a lot of messages, Carl, asking where you were. Man's allowed a holiday, so,
I had a very nice holiday. It's good to be back. Hello, how are you? Watching the continued romantic adventures of Laurie and Andy from afar.
Yes, I enjoyed it too. Andy, should we talk business?
Yeah.
Ben-ya-min Sheshko signed, hasn't he?
How are you pronouncing that?
Ben-ya-min Sheshko.
Well done.
We've now had guidance on his first name, not just his second name, from Anes Tojaga on YouTube, which I've probably just murdered his or hers pronunciation as well. But he's a United player. That's the main thing that counts, isn't it?
Yeah, I think everyone saw Manchester United needed a goal scorer in number 9, and we hope that he's going to be the man. I think it's a signing that's really excited fans. Most signings do, because you have this idealised version of what he's going to be and how many goals he's going to score. And you see these clips going around where he looks a little bit better than Lionel Messi. But I was happy, as we've constantly reported, it's somebody Manchester United have watched for a long, long time, tried to sign several times. His stats are good. We would probably have been equally enthusiastic about Rasmus Hojlund a couple of years ago. So there's no guarantees with any new players, but I do feel that he's a top young player and has had a bit more experience playing in a top league in Europe. And I'm hoping, I think we all are, that he is a success.
Yeah, Carl, you've seen him. You've not seen him play in person, but you've at least seen him on the pitch at Old Trafford for the Fiorentina game.
I have seen him play in person. I didn't realise it until going through my old notes from Euro 2024. But I did watch him play for...
I wonder why you were waving at me then. I thought there was something wrong.
Yeah, I did watch him play against Denmark in Stuttgart in Euro 2024.
Nice.
Just last year,
do you remember it?
Just last year. Hang on. Let me see if I get my Euro 2024 notepad out. Somewhere around here. He did not jump off the page in that 1-1 draw against Denmark. He was playing in a 4-4-2 and this was also the summer where he was of interest to both Newcastle and Arsenal before he decided to spend another season at RB Leipzig, which in the German reports at the time, everyone was agreeing probably was sensible that he needed another year in the Bundesliga. Him at Old Trafford comes out wearing a black tracksuit bottom, gives the old fist bumps to Fred the Red, shakes hands with everyone, is joined by all of Manchester United's new first team signings, as they're now calling it. So Diego Leon was also included, as well as Cunha and Big Bry. And it's exciting. Look, I've got pages of new notes on him since he's come around. And I've got quite a bit of footage still on my laptop that I've got to go through to look over him. And he's a very, very exciting player. The big operative word with him is potential. It is that if it all clicks and he puts all the pieces together, we are looking at a striker who could rank among some of the very best in Europe. However, like Andy's mentioned, a lot of the things we're talking about here are quite similar to some of the things we talked about when we were discussing Hojlund not too long ago. I'd say in Shesh-ko's advantage is that he's walking into a Manchester United team that has 2 new Premier League proven forwards behind him in Cunha and in Mbeumo, and they should hopefully be able to hold his hand a little bit and help him deal with the attacking difficulties and adjustment to the Premier League. I would also say already, as Andy's already said, Shesh-ko has played more senior games and played in more top-level games than Hojlund has at this age already. So, exciting player. I can show you clips where, yeah, he really does look like he's better than some of the best strikers in the world. He's got a right foot like a cannon. Someone in the comment section described it as there's a basketball stuck by the rim. You give it to Big Ben and go kick it out, and he'll it out. He's also got shots where you're looking at it going, that was weird. What are you playing at? So hopefully less weird stuff and more great cannon-like shots, and it'll be a great success.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Let's hope we see more of the good things than the bad things, definitely. Boy, do Manchester United need a centre-forward who can be on it this season. It's been a long chase, Laurie. We've talked about it on the show previously about just how long United have tracked Shesh-ko for. But they've got him now. It was a bit of a battle. There's a very detailed read on The Athletic that you've contributed to explaining exactly how United managed to get this over the line. How did they?
Well, they ultimately got Ben-ya-min Sheshko's buy-in, and that's what they waited for until they made a bid. And then there was a little bit of tweaking between the guaranteed fee and the add-ons. But yeah, they made their move, didn't they? They kind of waited until Newcastle were pushing hard for him, and it felt, to some at least, at points that they maybe did have the edge, Newcastle, because they came back with a second bid, and ultimately it got accepted as we reported. But I think my feeling always was that Manchester United were in the box seat for him. The first kind of message I got on him last week or the week before was basically, forget Ollie Watkins, United are doing Ben-ya-min Sheshko, and I think it'll happen. So that, to me, told me that people at United were confident they could get it done at that point when they started the negotiations. But ultimately they, I guess, waited for Newcastle to kind of set the bar. They realised what they had to meet, and they've kind of done it a slightly different way to Newcastle, but they've ultimately got to a price that RB Leipzig were happy with. And Sesko, I think, you look at, as we discussed on the last podcast, the state that Newcastle are in right now. They're in the Champions League. It's an appealing prospect for a lot of players to go to there. But I think they do have an issue with the location, even a little bit with the salary. I think that certainly United will say that they actually offer him, Shesh-ko, less money per week than Newcastle were, but I think maybe with incentives, with add-ons, it can obviously surpass that. So that's kind of what the Ineos strategy has been, to present players with contracts that are incentivised. But I think that's the issue that Newcastle have got at the moment. They've obviously been rejected by a lot of players now, and Mbeumo being one of them as well. Cunha maybe even to a degree. And so I think United have got that kind of historical cachet, that prestige that, they obviously finished 15th in the Premier League last season, dreadful. But if you can actually come to the club now and be a part of the rebirth, and there is obviously excitement around the kind of calibre of players they're signing, the kind of money they're putting down. We can maybe get into that a little bit in terms of how United are actually affording this, because certainly there were people a few weeks ago that felt that it had to be sales first. United have obviously gone for a player first. They can still make the sales to obviously balance the books, but I think it does add a little bit more pressure to that situation. But I do wonder if Sir Jim Ratcliffe has sort of thought, well, and this is certainly what some people were saying to me, it's now or never. Ruben Amorim is in a pressurised situation, so too Omar Rada, so too Jason Wilcox, and not too dissimilar from Erik ten Hag's first summer when they lost the first two games and United went all out for Casemiro and Antony. And obviously you can debate the merits of both those signings, certainly. I think these are signings that have been made with a bit more calculation, with sort of more evidence to support them in terms of the goals that they're producing, in terms of their overperformance on XG. Each player is doing that, and that's the kind of quality that you want to bring into the team. Obviously now it's a question of whether they can all gel together, but I think it's certainly a big show of support for Amorim. A kind of another tick to United's enduring ability to persuade players to join, albeit at one point I think Shesh-ko did have designs on Arsenal, and ultimately that was too complicated a deal for Arsenal to do. They ultimately went for Victor Gyökeres, and I think he was probably disappointed about that, Shesh-ko. But I think United, from what you see, from what he's talking about, from what his agent's been putting out there in terms of this kind of being a fulfilment of a life's ambition, I think certainly there's a massive excitement from him to be at United at Old Trafford. And I mean, also, being presented before the crowd, before that Fiorentina game, Carl, I'm kind of curious. The reaction sounded great on TV, but what was it like sort of being there for him in particular?
So, pre-match preparations, we were all told the brand new signings were going to be unveiled. And it was in Leon first, Cunha, then Bumo, and then you could really feel that extra couple of thousand fans get off of their feet, get their phones out, going, it's him. It's going to be the bombshell signing, Shesh-ko. It's a little bit weird, isn't this? Because if you told me at the end of May that when United and Arsenal are going to play next season, and Gyökeres is going to be a one team and Shesh-ko is going to be in the other, I'd have gone, yeah, sure. Arsenal's going to get one, and Victor's going to go off to reunite with Amarin, but it's going to be the other way around on Sunday. So that's going to be a fun little wrinkle for the Premier League.
On Sunday. Yeah, you're right. It's happening, isn't it? This week.
For the Premier League narrative makers to have these two strikers on the other team compared on all the transfer speculation. So that's a fun wrinkle. One thing immediately, he's tall, real. And that's, I know that sounds silly.
As tall as Fred
I
the
know
Red,
it sounds,
if not taller.
He's 6'5". And
is Fred the Red the barometer for who's tall?
I hope
that's
so.
A new one.
He should be going
I suppose
forward.
The big head. Yeah.
That's what I mean. Just a big inflated costume, isn't it? So
he's 6'5". He's very lean. I know there's been some early comparisons to him and Erling Haaland because Shesh-ko's also gone through the Australian Bundesliga before going to Germany as well. I spent, before I went off on holiday, I spent a little bit of time talking to my contacts in Germany, people in the know, people who've spoken to some of his early coaches, and they would like to downplay the comparisons to Haaland and instead say, actually, maybe he might have greater similarities to Ibrahimovic, perhaps. I've also been speaking to some people very talented in the know, and they're also offering perhaps Edin Dzeko as a comparison, which was quite fun because Dzeko was there playing for Fiorentina on Saturday too. So
I hope he's quicker.
He's very quick.
Yeah.
And when he gets on his bike, moving. So if you're a fan of, I've spoken about this before, in that I really love it when Manchester United play counter-attacking goals and everyone's just on their bikes and moving. And I've also spoken about how I love it when United score counter-attacking goals against Arsenal. So, Benjamin, if you can, on Sunday, do me a favour. One of them, please.
Yeah, 2 of them, please. 3 of them, please. On Sunday, that really caught me off guard, that, yeah. It's happening, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Andy, should we be praising the way that Manchester United have managed to get this deal done as well? Not in terms necessarily of the finances, which we will get into a little bit later about how they're actually affording all of this, but more about how they seem to have manoeuvred to make a situation work to their advantage. I'm talking about Newcastle. I'm talking about Liverpool's interest in Alexander Isak, sort of sitting in the background watching as Newcastle agreed or fine-tuned some of the finances involved and then swooped when they knew they could do it.
Yeah, Laurie said, some people said beyond the 2 players United would need to sell to bring in. I was one who definitely said that because that was my firm understanding. And I was surprised then, and we spoke to the club in Chicago a week or 2 ago just about how they could get the money to do this, and it was explained to us, and the situation's changed. In Manchester United, have got money from sell-on fees, etc. PSR calculations have changed. And then the way United have done it, I think is particularly impressive because you've got the one thing that is more important than anything else. You've got buy-in from the player. Mm-hmm. And the most high-profile chase, which didn't have that, was Frenkie de Jong just before Casemiro came. So you had a situation, and not dissimilar to Newcastle and RB with Shesko, where the 2 clubs have got broad agreement. That's not going to be a problem, but the player doesn't want the move. And what United have done with Brian Mbeumo and with Ben-ya-min Sheshko is get the players on board. And that puts you in a really good position because the player could then, if needed, not really been needed, agitate. Suddenly the potential selling club's in a situation where they've got a player who doesn't want to be there. And they might think, well, this player's not actually good for first team morale. Bit similar to Manchester United's bomb squad. So by Ruben Amorim speaking, if that happens, to players and outlining exactly what he wants from them, the player can see the vision. I think Manchester United's name really does help. 15th maybe, but one of the 3 biggest football clubs in the world. United are huge. And when the players see, I remember this with Paul Pogba a few years ago, when they see the reaction they go, whoa, this is massive. So one of the ways United tried to get Pogba ahead of Real Madrid, who were favourites to sign him, was to show the metrics of, you've been linked to Madrid. Okay, you go there, you're going to be the 5th best player there. And this is how many interactions you've got on social media. This is what happened when you were linked with Manchester United, just to show how big Manchester United are. And this isn't specifically happening now, but the players and their people can see Manchester United are massive. You're going to be playing in front of 73,500 people every week. The money's going to be good. It would appeal to your ego. You know, can you play a part in making this great club great again? Look at the signings who've come in. I think people are enthusiastic about all the signings. There are still some very, very good players there. You could be playing with Bruno Fernandes. This 15th position feels like an anomaly. So there's loads. And Manchester's a good city as well. You know, Lurie touched on Newcastle as being a potential problem. It's far more isolated than Manchester. Newcastle, in my opinion, is a really good city, but it doesn't have the connections that Manchester has. It isn't as good as Manchester. So Manchester United have lost out on players because they're based in Manchester in the past. This is a case where Manchester United have benefited from the Manchester location. But the key thing above everything is if your player wants to move, then the agent might be like, yeah, well, I can get more money elsewhere. But the agent shouldn't really be going against the explicit wishes of his client. If a client wants to move, that should be what is facilitated.
So what it does do, Carl, it finalises what looks like Manchester United's first choice front three. We won't know, we may not even see it against Arsenal, to be fair, because we don't know what sort of fitness condition Shesh-ko is in at the moment. But how excited are you about the prospect of Sesko and Mbeumo and Cunha together? How do you think that works?
That's interesting potential. There you go. There's your first sound effect for the season.
You didn't look too excited there, Carl. It looks kind of intrepid.
Okay. So when United first announced their intention to try and sign Brian and Mbeumo, I wrote up a bunch of pieces saying, if you get Cunha, you get Mbeumo, what you need to do is get a striker who can play on the last line of defence, because you want to push that back four, opposition back three, however, as far back towards their own penalty area, because that should in theory create more space for Cunha, Mbeumo and Fernandes to do their passing triangles and do their rotations. Someone who can drop deep, you don't necessarily need that, because that's Xerxes can do that if you want to play Xerxes there. And hold-up play is going to be super, super important. You need a big lad. And I've said this with every single position this summer. If you want to buy someone for Amorim's system, make sure they're really tall and really just like mean. Shesh-ko, 6'5", big lad, massively quick, really good at counter-attacking football, can play on the last line, north to south speed, like a rocket, ticks that box. His hold-up play is okay. It's better than Hojlund's, and a lot of United fans listen to this go, yep, fine, that's what I need. And his drop-in deep and link-up play is getting a bit better. He wasn't really guaranteed first name on the team sheet up until January last season, and then Marco Rose, and then things sort of changed towards the end of the season. He's been playing the front two with Openda. And Openda is the more sort of the main man in that Leipzig attack last season. So there's two or three things there where you're going, yeah, ticks boxes in terms of physicality, in terms of physical traits. There are also some things there where you're going, might be some teething issues here. One of Shesko's early coaches said that he can be a little bit sensitive. And I think probably maybe a better translation of that might be self-critical. There have been games that you could in last season where he's missed the chance. You can see him sort of yell at himself and sort of go, and you're going, right, okay. You do need to be a super confident person to be a Manchester United striker. I can't have you effing and blinding and moaning that you missed the chance. I need just to do the sort of Harry Kane, Cole Palmer, blink and move on to your next show. So in theory, this works really well, and the potential is there for this to be a fantastic front three. I think we might need to see it towards November time before all the teething stuff is sorted.
Yeah, they need to learn how to pronounce each other's names first, don't they? We've been on that journey. They need to go on that next. It does obviously pose quite a big question about Rasmus Hojlund's future as well. We've spoken already about his attitude wanting to stay at Manchester United. But could Sesko's arrival change that? We'll ask that question after this. Okay, Manchester United might not be done yet. Where have we heard that before? This is the transfer market, obviously. Sales being, well, we've said this before as well, but sales being hopefully the key that opens the door to more arrivals. And it looks like actually, Laurie, at this point, Rasmus Hojlund is the closest to an exit. Is that fair? I mean, I know things are progressing, it seems, with Chelsea and Alejandro Garnacho now, but the Hojlund talk is definitely intensifying.
Yeah, the Hojlund talk's intensifying because Shesh-ko's come in and Ruben Amorim hasn't picked Hojlund. Well, didn't even get him off the bench against Fiorentina. Obviously, started him on the bench and he came on for, I think, the last 18 minutes in the final pre-season tour game against Everton. So
why do you think he's done that?
It shows the club's intentions, doesn't it? It's showing Hojlund.
Yeah.
It's showing Hojlund. This is where we're going with it. You can maybe stay if you want, but minutes are going to be very hard to come by. I mean, starting Mason Mount up top instead of him is a pretty clear sign of what he's thinking, what the club are thinking. Even after the game, Amorim sort of seemed to neglect Hojlund because he said we missed having a reference point up top, and now we've got a new player for that. So, that is kind of quite damning, really, without being as brutal as he has been on other situations. But the point is, at this moment, I'm led to believe that Hojlund still is wanting to stay. Now, will that change as the days go on, the weeks go on? I know we've got still 3 weeks left, haven't we, really, until the end of the transfer window. So there's still a bit of time left yet. And I think United will try and accelerate talks with other clubs to see what they can get. But yeah, there's obviously quite a few that are interested. AC Milan, Adam Crafton, my colleague, has reported their interest. I think there's a few others that I've already mentioned, I think, on this podcast, Borussia Dortmund or even RB Leipzig themselves. You never know. Newcastle need a striker as well. So I think there's a few potential options there, but it does come down to Hojlund's choice. He still has agency in this, and for all that United might want to move him on so that they can bring some money in and then reinvest it, or just balance the accounts for the arrivals that they've already had, I still think that he's got a part to play in this. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how that develops, but I think we've kind of seen the direction of travel based on the signing, based on what the selections have been in the last couple of games.
Andy, you've been nodding.
Yeah, I think United would sell him, and that's not something I would have said and didn't say in this podcast 2 months ago. I think United would take the money, but as Laurie says, he still has agency in this. He still has a contract, and he still has a lot of support among Manchester United fans who feel that he came in young, he should be given more time. It's difficult to come into a struggling team and to play in the most difficult position, and he gave it his best shot, and his stats in terms of the goals are not impressive, but we did see moments. I do think he's got something there. I spoke to people, I think I mentioned Teddy Sheringham on this podcast a few weeks ago, who were very complimentary about Rasmus Hojlund, but I think it's needs must, and I think it's fine from a financial perspective. If Manchester United had a good offer for Rasmus Hojlund, then they would absolutely take it. And I think it started to change in Chicago pre-season. That's when Hojlund sort of came out, purposely spoke to the media, was quite forthright, this is my position. And I think he's realised, actually, Manchester United are looking elsewhere. You're not going to be the main man. And then his situation has got worse for him with a lack of minutes. Laurie mentioned that coming on against Everton in Atlanta for the last few minutes, it was really telling. There was a chance, I think it was Dorgu, and Hojlund was screaming for the ball and didn't get it, and he looked so frustrated. So not a good time for him. If I was being really clinical about it, he's had 2 years to impress. He arrived very young. He hasn't been the player that Manchester United fans hoped that he would be.
No, there's been quite a few Well, there's been a lot of support, actually. I think that's the first thing I should say. And sympathy, like you've been spelling out there, Andy, and the messages that we've received on email, comments on YouTube, whatever it might be these days. Sam has asked, is there a world where United have both Sesko and Hojlund, which, Carl, I can see working because they are far more similar than Shesh-ko and Xerxes, for example. And the other concern, actually, that Eric shared on email, would it not be a big mistake to let Hojlund go and then have another young, unproven striker, unproven in the Premier League at least, carry the number 9 burden alone for a season? Because that sounds familiar. What do you think?
It does sound familiar. I think the solution or the viewpoint that the recruitment team United are having is having Shesh-ko over Hojlund can be less of a problem, because if you sell Hojlund or move on Hojlund for a good enough price, you can then use those funds to strengthen elsewhere. And if, as Andy said, Hojlund walked into a struggling team he arrived injured into a struggling team that had weaknesses in central midfield, that had huge injuries in central defence as well. There are better centre-back options now in this Manchester United squad. And if Hojlund's loan, however much fee, can be used to bring in a central midfielder on top of the new additions of Cunha and Mbeumo, that should hopefully make Shesh-ko's adjustment easier. I think it's not just you move on Hojlund and that's that. It's also who you can get in afterwards with that fee. And it very much seems like any sort of sale of any player, not just the Manchester Five or Hojlund, will be used to try and get someone else in ASAP. So, yeah, it's a real shame, because there is a player there in Hojlund, but
yeah,
I'm not sure if that player that I saw score 5 goals in the Champions League group stages in a Manchester United shirt, I'm not sure if that player can return now without at least spending some time elsewhere to get his mind right.
Well, he needs football, doesn't he? And if United can't offer him that this season, then even for his own career, I guess it would make sense to look elsewhere.
It's a World Cup year. There's no European football.
Exactly, yeah. There's going to be less minutes than ever. There's also that very awkward thing of Chido Obi's behind him, not just for Manchester United, but also for Denmark. So, yeah, he's got to play, and he's got to play and get out of this funk quickly. And the best way to do that might actually be to be playing at AC Milan for a season or two. Yeah, I guess there's a world where he goes out on loan, performs well. Not only does he restore his value for Manchester United in a transfer sense, but also he could remind everyone at the club, what encouraged them to sign him in the first place, potentially. But we'll keep an eye on that. Obviously, it won't be the last that we hear of Hojlund's situation. Alejandro Garnacho's situation we've talked about at length repeatedly, but it does finally, Laurie, seem like there is a little bit of movement in the direction of Stamford Bridge now. Yeah,
I mean, it's been one that we've kind of expected, right? We've hinted at it. We've sort of talked about it being the most likely outcome, and talks now, as reported by David Ornstein, are picking up. And I've thought long that this would ultimately be what happens, but Chelsea are waiting for the end of the window so that they feel that they can get a bit of a discount on the price. And it's going to be really fascinating to see where that lands. Similarly with Hojlund, because we're hearing sort of kind of conflicting reports on what United would accept. Is it 30 million? Is it 40 million? On Hojlund, I'm told that if it's a sale, they do accept that it would be less than the book value, which is about 45 million, because you've got to include different signing on fees and things like that within the actual purchase price. But Garnacho, similar kind of thing. I think at the start of the window, some clubs were told 70 million, and then I think it adjusted maybe to 60 million. And now, I don't know, you're sort of thinking, would you accept 40 million? To kind of balance what you've already spent on signing, with the sales. I think that's a really fascinating dynamic to this all, because United have made the signings. Now, does that put pressure on them to make these sales? I know Ruben Amorim said, we'll welcome them back after the window. We've got the price. If clubs don't meet these prices, then we will, we'll keep them. I just don't think that's realistic. So Chelsea are playing on that, and I think they're, looking at it thinking, well, okay, if we kind of leave it a little bit longer, then the price will drop because they know they have to sell him. Garnacho, I keep seeing him posts, pictures of himself training or in the gym alone, sort of on his Instagram. I mean, he's obviously waiting for this move to happen. I think it will ultimately happen, but at which price, I'm not sure yet. But then, does that then, as you say earlier, Ian, sort of unlock something else? It is kind of like a bit of a who blinks first situation going on. There's kind of different balances operating in terms of what United want to do and then what other clubs might want to do with United players. But yeah, I think the Chelsea thing seems to be getting some momentum at last.
Yeah, does it unlock something else, Andy Mitton?
What else does it unlock?
Are you a believer, in things that can be unlocked?
So, if Chelsea have got buy-in from Garnacho, that's quite similar to Manchester United having buy-in from players.
Yeah.
It puts Chelsea in a really strong situation. Chelsea and Garnacho definitely spoke in January, and money was spoken about as well. When I look at Garnacho just briefly, it's a cursory tale in what not to do when you're a Manchester United player. I can't help but thinking, for all his talent, and he's hugely talented and exciting, I do think there's a good kid there as well. He's got a good family around him. If he'd done nothing at all on social media, his position at Manchester United would be far better. Mm-hmm. If his family members had done nothing at all on social media, he'd be in a far stronger position. So Baleba, as was reported on The Athletic by David Ornstein last week, absolutely somebody Manchester United are interested in signing. Not the first Brighton player Manchester United have been in for, or a midfielder who Brighton have picked up relatively cheaply. This is what Brighton and Hove Albion do. There's interest there. And my understanding is that as we speak today, it's going to be quite difficult to do unless players are moved on. The finances are just very tight at the moment. I think there's absolutely willing from the player because Manchester United are far more attractive than Brighton and Hove Albion. But at the moment, the fee which Brighton are likely to ask for, I think, will be prohibitive for Manchester United. That's not to say it doesn't happen, but that's where we are on this day, the 11th of August. Situation can change, pressure can come. The player, for example, could really push to leave. The
agent could forgo the fee.
Yeah, he could. I got misquoted on that. I did the Athletics Daily podcast on Friday and basically said what I've just said there.
Oh, so you gave them the exclusive?
Well, it's the Athletic,
isn't it? For us. Fine.
And woke up on Saturday to see that words I did not say were going viral on aggregators. It's just annoying. It's just part of doing what we do. But the bottom line is Manchester United are absolutely interested in the player. But at the moment, I think what Brighton are likely to ask, and Brighton don't really need to sell either. Brighton haven't been shy asking for big fees. I think it would be difficult.
Yeah, Ashraya said, please tell me we do realistically have a chance of signing Baleba. Just the rumours are giving me goosebumps. Well, I think that answers your question. Carlton's got an interesting one though, Carl, as well. Carl has been a little bit too complimentary of the Cameroonian signings, but have the recruitment team cottoned on merely to big backsides, which you made a popular part of Manchester United's transfer parlance earlier on this summer.
Brian Mbeumo has anterior pelvic tilt. You will notice this throughout the season. Look, Baleba is a very, 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 very good central midfielder. He, as Andy's already pointed out, he's the next one on the Brighton conveyor belt of midfielders. So it was Yves Bissouma, then Moises Caicedo. Now it's Baleba. I think the situation with Brighton, typically how they go about these things is they don't like to authorise a sale of one of their top players unless they've already got their successor in the door already. So Baleba was already at Brighton when Caicedo was authorised to go for 115 million to Chelsea.
That's a lot, isn't it?
That's a lot of money. But also, if you look at, you talk to Chelsea fans, or the majority of Chelsea fans, they'll say, well, Caicedo's absolutely worth it. And he's just bolted down that role in their midfield. And I think if Baleba were to move to Manchester United, he would bolt down that role in the central midfield pivot. He'd make Bruno Fernandes's life a lot easier because of the way he's just really mobile, can sweep. He'd make Amarin's life very, very more comfortable because of the fact that he's a proactive defender as well. So while you've got players like Ugarte and Casemiro who are quite strong when everyone's retreating and running back and needing to make a tackle, Baleba's the one who can push up and keep United in the final third and in the opposition half, and that's useful. He's very good. However, if you're Brighton, you're going, well, this is the player we got to succeed 115 million midfielder, that'll cost you 115 million. You're like, oh. I'll keep looking at Chris Weatherspoon's piece on The Athletic about how United are affording all of these things. And there's a section in there that Weatherspoon has tweeted about, saying he's annoyed the aggregators didn't pick it up because I think it was a little bit too confusing for them, where there is reason to believe, and we won't know this for sure until possibly next month or the month afterwards, but there is a reason to believe United may have opened up another revolving credit facility. And that might be a way as to how United are able to afford this thing. However, if you open up a brand new one and you're a club like Brighton, and you've just found out United have got a new credit card, yeah, I'm going to go, come on then, 115.
Yeah. How are they affording this, Laurie? We've sort of asked this question repeatedly in the last, few episodes, basically. Chris's piece, like Carl's just mentioned there on The Athletic, does go into a lot of detail about the specifics of Manchester United's finances. We've obviously, talked historically about the revolving credit facility, but this is a backdrop of Sir Jim Ratcliffe's quote, which has been circulated everywhere again over the weekend, about United going bust by Christmas if some of the changes, some of the redundancies weren't made. So how exactly does this all fit together? Because I'm confused and I feel like I'm more informed on the general situation than a lot of people who are getting in touch with us seem to be, about what on earth is going on with this and how are United doing this and how do we feel about them doing this when they've made the sort of decisions they've made?
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly surprised that United have been able to flex their financial might in this way, because all the messaging, all the instinct was that they would make sales first and it'd be very tight. I think Carl's point is very pertinent. Chris Weatherspoon, it's great detail that he's found that is a little bit, you need some deciphering on it, but he's obviously made the checks, and it's right that United have, I think, extended their revolving credit facility. So, something like 300 million is what they already had available to them, and they would dip into this, right? Every summer market, they'd basically slap it on the credit card and then have to come and pay it back when they had a bit of cash flow coming in. And they've now got a wider berth on that. I don't know the exact figures. I don't think it's clear from the accounts, but they have got more cash at their disposal via that method. So that's the cash element of it. Now, obviously, you've got to pay that back at some point. And therefore, to Sir Jim Ratcliffe's point, I think we kind of debunked it at the time that United were never going to go bust. Now, what the issue was that the cash flow would be difficult, around Christmas time, because that's when they have a sort of historical lows, because they wait for then the season ticket money to come in or the broadcast money to come in. So then it picks up again in sort of January, February, March time. So it's a cycle, right? So I think United were never at that kind of risk. Now, he obviously will say those kind of things to, I think, justify the redundancies that are going on, and that's his prerogative. He can, it's his club, or at least he's part owner of it, and he's been given license to make changes as he sees fit. And one of those changes is to drastically reduce the workforce. Now, then so they will say that then allows them money to make these kind of signings, and I'm a bit uncomfortable with that being sort of the equivalence. But nevertheless, I think people will appreciate that if the club's profitable, they should absolutely invest in players. And now you come to Carlos Baleba. And, as you say, Brighton are going to ask for a lot of money for him. I don't know the exact figure. I don't know if that's actually been communicated yet, but clearly United feel that they might have a chance on this. Otherwise, they wouldn't be entering these kind of talks, that I think have been going on for a little bit of time via intermediaries. And now, as David Ornstein's reported, with Brighton as well. So I think United feel that this is the summer to try and steal a march on other clubs that might go for him next year. And now, can they make it work financially? I think payment terms is a big thing, instalments, being able to actually pay the cash across. So that's, again, we're going back to this credit facility. And then you come to PSR and FFP. United are on record as saying they will be compliant with the financial regulations, both in the Premier League and for UEFA, even though they're not in European competition this year. They need to kind of still play ball on that because they're hoping to get back into it. So you can't suddenly have like one wild year where you lose a load of money and then hope to make it up in future years. One thing too that has been to their benefit is the season when Erik ten Hag first came in. So we're talking about the Anthony and Casemiro summer where they did lose quite a lot of money. That's going to fall off the 3-year rolling cycle that they then come to when the next year's accounts are kind of filed. So they've got a bit more wriggle room on that. But I still feel that they need sales, right? They have to have sales to make this all work. And that's why, to Andy's point, it feels possibly remote at the moment with Baleba, but clearly there's something there where United are getting an impression, I would say, that Baleba's open to this, but clearly Brighton are very hard negotiators. They are not going to just allow a player to leave, and that's why it kind of makes it perhaps at the far end of possibilities at the moment. But as we've seen with Ratcliffe, he's trying to force through the new stadium. He's put that out into the public domain to get government backing for it. He's obviously built a new training ground to the tune of £50 million, which we'll get onto, no doubt. He's committed the cash to 3 major signings. Three. So these are 3 of the most expensive signings in United's history out of the top 10. So that's something to take note of. And I do wonder, whether there was a point at which they're sort of thinking we need to be prudent, we need to be smart about the transfers that we make. And then you have this trip to Iceland where, I'm not going to say that they were fishing the whole time, but obviously they had opportunity to discuss in a kind of leisurely fashion, get face to face with each other. And I do wonder if that from that point they've kind of decided we're going to go for it. We're going to go for it now this summer to make a real impact. We've got opportunities to get players in that we'd want to get in at any point. Clearly Baleba is a player that I think United would love to sign at any point in their arc of success or not. And so if they can do it now, then they can kind of figure out the finances later. I kind of feel like that's where they're at with this all. And Amorim's wanted an athletic number 8, should we say, maybe number 6, the whole summer really. So this has been something that's been bubbling on in the background whilst they first addressed the glaring issues at the top of the pitch.
Years ago, Brighton and Hove Albion were about to go bust. They had really dodgy owners. They had to play games at Gillingham, and I put some money in so that Brighton and Hove Albion survived. I want that back with interest. I want 115 million quid back now that you've established yourself with your swanky new stadium at Falmer and your nice training ground. And it's been a very, very successful club judged by many metrics. Maybe should have just let him go bust now. Talking myself into a dead end here, aren't I?
No, Andy, this is something I'm interested in. You're a very well-travelled man. You've visited football stadiums around the world. There must be multiple football clubs where you've put money into a bucket to stop them from going bust.
Yeah.
So Brighton's one.
Yeah.
Did you help Bournemouth?
Sure not.
Me and Bournemouth are not in a good place at the moment. I even helped a Scouse team last year called Lower Breck. They got right by Anfield. They got the ground kept getting vandalised. Yeah, I know we've sort of been slightly jokey about this. There is a serious point that what's happening at Morecambe and at Sheffield Wednesday should not be allowed to happen. These are real communities. We're talking a lot on this podcast about transfers and transfer fees. What does that matter compared? And it does matter. I get why it matters, but there are towns not far from Manchester where the community is being ripped apart because of terrible owners. And it's happened at Bury 5 years ago. It's happening at Morecambe now. It's a disaster. It's a failure that these things are allowed to happen. Sheffield Wednesday are a great football club, and they're also going through the mill. We don't know how that's going to come out, but maybe a regulator from the British government, an independent one, it will prevent this type of thing happening. But it does happen with alarming worry.
Well, thank you to all of you who are listening to this in the old school way, our legacy fans, our podcast listeners. Thank you as well for joining us on YouTube. If you've not checked out the channel already, it's at TOT Devils on there. If you are watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, click the bell so you never miss an episode. Get involved in the comments as well. We had some brilliant stuff relating to the gifts that Sir Jim Ratcliffe may or may not be sending to Ruben Amorim. So there was some really fun things in there. So thank you very much for everyone for getting involved in that. We're going to talk now about Manchester United's new look training ground. And the only way to do that is to hear from the man who got a tour. Us four didn't. Mark Critchley did.
Okay, guys, it's Critch here, coming to you from Copenhagen, having just got back from Brøndby to Velde 1. That's what I've spent my day doing, and I'm slightly worried that I'm turning into Andy Mitten. But I'm not here to talk to you about the 28,000 capacity Brøndby Stadion built in 1965. I'm here to talk to you about the redeveloped Carrington, which I basically came to Copenhagen straight from after it was opened on Friday. United obviously spent the last year, spent £50 million rebuilding the men's training facility at Carrington. We all know that the old building needed a bit of work. Sir Jim Ratcliffe even referenced that when he was cutting the ribbon for the new facility on Friday, saying that the last one felt a bit like a hospital in a basement sometimes, or even I think he called it a gloomy rabbit warren. Well, it's not a gloomy rabbit warren anymore, that's safe to say. There are some elements of it that aren't totally new. Not everything is brand spanking, £50 million spent. The gym, which you may recognise from watching videos of the players train at Carrington, that's still very much as it was. The swimming pool that Cristiano Ronaldo complained about all those years ago, that's the same swimming pool as it was then. I did have a look at the tiles, they all seem to be intact now, which is an upgrade if anything. But basically everything else is new. Whether that's the men's dressing room, which now has dedicated slots for each first team player and a little screen welcoming them to Carrington that day, setting out their schedule for the day, whether it's the medical room, the treatment facility, which used to be right in the middle of the building, no natural light, no windows. It's now to the back of the building. It looks out onto the pitches where those players need to be to get them in the right psychological mind frame to recover from injury. Whether it's the canteen upstairs, which is decked out with F1 simulator, a barber's, Tom Heaton telling us that Diogo Dalot was the first one in for a new trim. Whether it's the urinals, which now test and can tell whether a player's hydrated or not, insanely. There's just everything in there has been thought about. A lot of money's been spent. There's still a few things that need shaking up. There's still a few bits of equipment that need to be filled in. There's going to be a paddle court, we're told, as well. Interestingly, that was one thing that came up when the players were consulted about what they want to see. And interestingly, boys, as well, most importantly, there's a brand new press facility, press room as well. 80 seats, 80 journalists in there, right up to UEFA regulations. There's even a working area outside, so we don't need to go and file our copy in our cars afterwards as well. It's a really impressive facility, to be honest. You know, we all know that there was complaints about Carrington in the past. We know that it wasn't quite up to standard, but this is a training ground befitting a Premier League club. And most importantly, it's ready. It's been built on time, to budget, and it's here for the new Premier League season.
Andy, what do you think? You're our infrastructure guru. I'm sure you've seen pictures, if not had the guided tour like Critch has had, but it looks impressive, doesn't it?
We can't put it on United for not having a guided tour. We were all on holiday.
Yeah, there is that, yeah.
You know, it's our fault entirely. We were all invited to go there.
Oh, I thought we were all going to put this on United, Andy. I thought we had an agreement that we were going to slate them for not inviting us.
It's a massive improvement. Last year, the first team were working out of cramped conditions, very cramped conditions, which totally went across this idea of open plan, of everybody mixing. And I see it now, and I was just thinking like it'd be a new hot shower, and maybe like a bar in the corner or a cigarette machine or a
it's a
pool table or
hairdresser's.
something like that.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's a barber.
Cigarette
Everything,
machine.
innit? You've got views from the top overlooking Broadheath on one side. You've got Carrington, Flixton and Urmston on the other. Fantastic.
Got to get Urmston in.
It looks, being more serious, the Glazers let infrastructure and stadium, etc. slide. And this is just catch up, because what was groundbreaking and cutting edge in 2000 wasn't in 2023. And clubs, not just big clubs like Tottenham, who had the best training ground, but Leicester City built a fantastic training ground. So Manchester United needed to spend money. I'm glad the money's been spent. Credit to Stuart Ratcliffe for putting the money in there. I will hopefully get a proper look around it. I did raise my eyebrows at the 80 capacity media room, given the way elements of the media are going. Are there even 80 journalists to fill that anymore? But if Manchester United get back into a big European game, I'm sure there absolutely will be. So good. All positive from my perspective.
Diogo Dalot gets the first haircut, Laurie. Sorry, mate.
I'm fuming. Do you reckon they would have let me have a haircut?
You've got
if
to
I'd
bring
been
your own
there?
barber, mate.
Is that what it is? Well, that makes sense to me because players are very particular about who cuts their hair. So, I was thinking, are they really going to go to a barber's at the training ground? But if they can bring their own, I saw Lisandro Martinez brought his fella with him, so he's looking, his hair's looking very fresh. To be fair, I love that they've actually got. I hope I'm not dispelling any secrets here, but they've got a little, the barber's kind of classic spiral.
Well, you need to know it's a barber's. I mean, is a barber's if it's not got that thing outside?
What is it? What's it called?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I know the sign.
Listeners, let us know.
How often
Viewers,
do
let us
you
know.
have your hair cut, you three? I'm quite interested.
Well, I need to get my hair cut more now because we're on YouTube.
All right.
I got my hair cut yesterday because I went, oh God,
Some
I'm
work
on
experience.
YouTube.
So just answer the question then. How often do you
I've been
three
in a
get your hair
caravan in
cut?
Devon for 3 weeks.
All right. When
I
you're not
haven't
in a
had my hair
caravan
cut
in
since
Devon.
Really? It looks good.
Since
looks good for no for 3 weeks, no chop.
Before our first YouTube show, that was the last time I had my hair
Right.
cut.
So what?
Wow,
Once a
okay.
month, Ian?
Yeah, about that,
Right,
probably.
Carl?
Sometimes longer.
At least every 6 weeks.
Laurie?
Like every 10 days. I had it cut twice in Chicago, didn't I?
Twice?
The first one wasn't quite right, so I had to go and get it.
You have your
altered.
hair cut every 10 days.
Probably something like that, yeah.
Wow.
Well, now that we are on YouTube, I just want it
This is
looking
it.
as
We're on
fresh as
YouTube
it can
now,
be, and
so-
obviously I'm
What
getting on a
difference
bit
does it
now,
make
so-
whether you're on YouTube or not? Surely, like, walking around being a human is important. More important than
Is
an
it?
hour on.
Go have a fresh trim for work. When I saw they were going
back
to
to the
open up a
point.
barbershop space, I just went, oh my goodness, imagine how much drama around Paul Pogba we could have saved by having this a couple of years earlier. Ah, well.
But I mean, I think it is a sign that they are trying to get the players to spend more time at the training ground, right? I think they've also got a games unit so they can play
An F1
racing
simulator.
games or
F1
whatever, have a
simulator,
bit of
there's a pool table in
competition.
there.
Hopefully
There'll be
it's
some
a
paddle courts later on.
Mercedes team. Paddle courts to be installed. Carl, you're getting you're pitching for a match, aren't
Absolutely,
you, there
of course.
against like Bruno or somebody?
I've played Diogo Dalot at paddle.
Have you?
Yeah.
How was he?
Well, it was for a television interview, so I don't think he was going full pelt, but we won.
He battered you, didn't
We
he?
won.
He owns his own
embarrassed
paddle
you.
company in Portugal.
Yeah,
He's
he does.
proper into
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
I just don't think he's allowed to. I don't think we're allowed to play it.
I think they are allowed
mid-season.
to play it.
Okay.
Surely.
I mean, they can't install a paddle court at the training ground. Well, lads, you're not allowed to go in there.
and that's something from the players, right? The players said we want a paddle
Yes.
court, so there's been a bit
Yeah,
of
they are allowed to play
dialogue
it.
between
They're
them.
definitely allowed to play it. There was a picture a while ago. I can't remember how long ago it was, but there was like Garnacho, Fernandez, Mainu, maybe someone else.
Ahmad.
Well, it needs to be four. Ahmad was it, playing paddle that went around a bit. So yeah, I think they are allowed. Maybe it's one of those things that sort of happens in the background and no one's supposed to see it.
Okay.
I've not heard of any first team players picking up injuries playing paddle, but maybe that's to come. Yeah, exactly.
Did you see the altitude bikes as well in there? Is that for if in case Oldham Athletic get promoted again and you have to go to high altitude?
West
So
Brom.
you got to prepare for that. West Brom. West Brom's the
Brom,
highest
Andy, come
ground,
on.
I think.
There you go. Yeah, that's why I said it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
If West Brom come
Yeah.
up.
It's just in case when they go across the Pennines to Leeds this season, to Ellen Road, and they go past that house in the middle of the motorway. That's a pretty high point, isn't it? That's the highest motorway in the country or something. So as long as they get past that, the altitude bikes will have helped them
What
with
has
that.
this descended into?
A farce.
Exactly, yeah. And I feel like I need to drag it back, kicking and screaming. But fundamentally, how much of a difference is this going to make, Andy, do you think, to have this facility? Not just actually to the men's team, but to the women's team as well, who were back in their purpose-built facility that they were kicked out of for a little while.
And the academy as well. So if you're showing new players, this is our setup, then that is a positive. You're not showing people something that is very 2000. I said good earlier on, and I mean that. I think United will make Carrington more of a hub. I think they'll move staffing from Old Trafford as well. You saw the number of desks there. Foster is a Mancunian architect. I don't know what football team he supports actually, or even if he's into football. But I really like what I saw. I want to see it properly. But if you've got an environment where the players want to be, and the one thing that struck me from the pre-season tour, speaking to lots of the players, is the mood is genuinely good. And I think it is among fans at the moment. And of course, 30-40% of that is pre-season optimism. But the signings have definitely helped. And the fact that it was opened in a week that a new signing came in. These are all little ticks, and there's been a lot of negative news around Manchester United in the last year. So I've got no problem with positive news coming forward. And the opposite of a new training ground is a training ground where nothing's done. So, you know, I'm in full agreement with the fact that it's done. I thought it was really nice that there's a plaque for calf FIPS as well, because every single time I went there over 25 years, CAF was there. And she treated everybody the same. You know, she'd always say, who have you seen? What's he doing? Blah, blah, blah. She was a lovely lady. So it was good that. And to have Sir Alex Ferguson back in there as well. So Carrington's grown an awful lot because you've got the women's team, you've got the academy team. And one reason Manchester United moved there was because they had the foresight of having a place with a lot of space.
Yeah, it was a lovely touch to see Sir Alex back there and paying that tribute to Kath as well. One thing we should talk about, Carl, before we finish actually, and it ties into the point that Andy mentioned about the changing mood, was the pre-season game against Fiorentina. Now, in the next episode, ahead of the new season starting on Sunday against Arsenal, we'll talk about some of the takeaways from pre-season that you've all seen. But you noted the changing mood, didn't you? Because the last time you were in a football stadium watching Manchester United was the Europa League final, and then step into this beautiful buzz before the Fiorentina pre-season friendly at Old Trafford with the new players being presented, with David de Gea back, getting his tribute finally as well. You said it felt completely different. And that's an interesting point ahead of the season starting, isn't it?
We've come a long way from a depressing sounding leaf blower.
Yes.
Yeah, the mood is bouncing going in. I got the tram to Old Trafford before kickoff. Loads of fans from all over the world, because pre-season offers just a little bit more opportunity to get tickets if you're an international fan as well. And yeah, the mood was ebullient. This was the first time United fans, Old Trafford regulars got a look at Cunha and Mbeumo. The tribute to De Gea, I mean, he got a standing ovation when he first came out down the tunnel. Then again during a little tribute where Bruno Fernandes gave him a picture. And then again towards the end of the game, he was substituted before full time and he got another standing ovation. More than one United fan offered a joke that he was being substituted off because there was going to be a penalty shootout ahead. But, that's a bit too spicy for my taste. It was a good mood until I'd say about halftime, and then there was that very, very obvious dread about how Manchester United actually play football. Because while the team has made some reinforcements, as Laurie has already spoken about, Mason Mount playing false nine in that game, they did look toothless in a lot of parts. The De Gea experience was quite interesting in that, he's David De Gea, right? He's still a very, very good 1v1 goalkeeper. There were two-headed attempts where it looked as if the ball the ball magically teleported to where De Gea was, and he didn't have to make a save. But actually, he knows how to read the game properly. He knows how to read the flight of the ball and go, if I just stand here, that's the best place for me to make a save. There was also 2 or 3 times where De Gea had the ball at his feet and he didn't quite understand Mason Mount was sneaking up on his left-hand side to try and nick the ball off him. So in the 17th minute, Mount nearly nicked it off him. You're like, yep, that's De Gea. He's still perhaps not the goalkeeper with the ball at his feet in a way that the quote-unquote modern football coach once. And the goal that De Gea did concede was from a corner kick where Mason Mount was pretty much just stood in front of him, and De Gea couldn't get past him. So when the ball was whipped in the back post, Casemiro Lenioro helped engineer an own goal from Fiorentina. So you got the full David De Gea experience there. If you're a United fan who says we should never have sold De Gea, that game will tell you why you probably should never have sold De Gea. And if you're a United fan that says we absolutely should have moved on from David De Gea, that game is enough evidence as to why you should have sold David De Gea. So there's that.
Yeah, thank you, Carl. John pointed out on email, he went to the pre-season friendly against Fiorentina, said the reception for David De Gea from the Old Trafford crowd was immense. And it's a lovely touch that they gave him 3 standing ovations in the end, because obviously the way that he left, he never really had the chance to say goodbye after all the years playing so brilliantly for Manchester United in goal. And obviously we wish him all the best for the future. Any chance that, just a little sting in the tail at the end of this episode, Laurie, that there might be another goalkeeper at Old Trafford in the not too distant future that isn't David De Gea, or indeed his replacement Andre Onana, or indeed one of the backups in Altay Bayindir or Tom Heaton?
Are you suggesting the links to Donnarumma might be an indication of some further talks ahead on the goalkeeping front?
Maybe. A loan deal for Emi Martinez? I don't think we ever reflected on that fully, but that was bizarre as well.
Yeah, that was an offer, wasn't it, that was made, and Villa were like, no, if it's going to be anything, it's going to be a sale. It's strange, that whole situation, I think, because you had him sign a new contract last summer and then he wants to leave this summer. So Villa are like, well, okay, we'll let you go, but it's going to cost a decent amount of money. Something that United can't, I don't think, particularly when they're trying to look at getting Baleba in, countenance. And so, for a 32-year-old, so I think that's been parked. Clearly the goalkeeping situation isn't ideal, but it basically depends on Andre Onana being sold. And I don't see at this moment, any indication of that. As far as I'm aware, I think he's intending to be fit for the Arsenal game. Let's see if that's actually going to happen, because he hasn't played anything in pre-season, so it might be interesting to throw him straight into the mix in a Premier League game against a team that obviously are a threat from set pieces. But yeah, the wider point about Donnarumma, PSG have signed a new goalkeeper, haven't they, from Lille, who's supposed to be quite good. So there's Donnarumma contract talks as well at the moment. There's some sort of dispute there. I don't know. It's clearly something that United are aware of. Whether it actually then progresses to anything substantial, I don't know. I would be more hesitant on that. I think the focus at the moment is sales and seeing if anything can happen with Baleba than the goalkeeper. But I think maybe longer term, that is something to be addressed. And you never know. Opportunistic moments do come about in transfer windows, so never say never. But that's my understanding at the moment.
I think the goalkeeping area is one of concern, but as Laurie said, other areas would take priority. I think Andre Onana is definitely an issue for Manchester United, but we've only got one transfer window here. I hope that Onana comes back and plays well, but I know what I saw with my own eyes last year, and I think if he's playing like he did at parts of last year, or I think he got it totally wrong with all the Nemanja Matic stuff, for example. I don't think there's any bad intent there, but he just didn't need to do what he did. Then the pressure will grow for a new goalkeeper. Interestingly, I saw Ter Stegen talking last night. He's got a massive problem with Barcelona. Got no evidence whatsoever that Manchester United are interested in Ter Stegen, by the way. But goalkeeper is...
Oh, this is definitely going to be Andy Mitten says United are in for Ter Stegen.
I've translated
Get it out, aggregators. Yep. Come on, clip it up. We've translated it for you.
Mad, innit? It's mad how you can say, today is Monday, and then you see on the aggregators... So-and-so says today is Tuesday.
Well, it'll all depend on when people are listening or watching this, won't it, as to what day it is. So you've got to let the people decide, Andy, on the actual facts of the situation, or maybe not. But we'll leave it there anyway. Thank you for listening and watching, whatever day it is. It's been great to have you with us as always. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a comment as well, or send us an email, of course, devilspod@theathletic.com. But for the minute, Laurie, Carl and Andy, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for listening and watching. Like I say, we'll be back ahead of the Arsenal game to preview that and look ahead to the new season. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching the show. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, most importantly, and click that bell
so you never miss an episode of Talking the Devils.